There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to my new filming spot. It's the one place within walking distance of my house where I am in the shade. I'm sitting on, looks like the foundation of a tiny little building that once sat here, so got a wet bum, but you're worth it. So without further ado, this is my Women in Translation Month TBR for 2022. There is an adjunct readathon scheduled for, let's see, oh yeah, August 8th to August 14th. I think that's far too short, so I read Women in Translation books for the whole month of August. That readathon, I'll put a link to Kendra Winchester's video. There's some other organizers, and I'm not going to follow any of the prompts because I'm a maverick. Maverick, that's a word that has been polluted by Sarah Palin, isn't it? Anyway, other than that, I accidentally chose one that they're doing a group read on, but we'll get to that in a minute. As usual, this is a hodgepodge because I'm never very organized and I often read stuff that's not actually on my TBR. This year, that is compounded by the fact that a lot of my books are coming to me in the mail from Tokyo. Even if I only get one of these short stories read in August, I have to start this. This is a book of short fiction by one of my very most favorite writers, the Norwegian writer Cora Sandel, The Silken Thread. And these, like her absolutely fabulous, life-changing for me personally, trilogy of novels, the Alberta trilogy. This was translated from the Norwegian by Elizabeth Rokkan. I have tried to get to this earlier in the year, but I was a little busy, so I didn't. So I'm going to get to it. Like I say, I'll read it for the rest of the year if need be, but I'm going to get it started for Women in Translation Month. I will put my review of all 3 volumes of the Alberta trilogy in the show notes. Can't wait to read more, especially translated by Elizabeth Rokkan, one of the very best translators. Here are a few that I'm planning to get to because I've had them on my radar or on my shelf for a long time, but they're in boxes that are making their way across the pond from Tokyo to Saskatoon. So if they get here in time, one of those is the Quebec novel, The Tin Flute by Gabrielle Roy, translated by Alan Brown. And I have never read it. It's a classic of Canadian literature. It's one of the few Quebec novels that, at one time at least, was widely read throughout English-speaking Canada. I want to finally read it. I did a bite-sized chat about that. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Another one, which I just bought just a few weeks, I think, just a month or two before I left Tokyo, and then put it in a box coming to me, but it had been on my radar for a long time, and that's The Last Brother by Nathacha Appanah. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, and it was translated from, I'm not sure which language. What is the language of Mauritius? Oh, I can't, I'm sorry, I can't find out because I don't have Wi-Fi when I'm out in nature. But it was translated by Geoffrey Strachan. It's not that long, maybe 200 pages. Set in 1944 Mauritius, and a 9-year-old boy in a prison camp gets beaten up, is admitted to the prison ward to recover. His father is a guard, and apparently his father's an evil person. And then he befriends a Jewish refugee who's also in the prison camp, and when there is a big storm on the island, they escape, and then the story goes from there. But I have heard really good things about this. I would say maybe 4 years ago, I saw a review on BookTube by somebody who left soon after, but it was a masterful review, and it's been on my radar ever since. So I'm hoping to finally get to it, if it arrives in Saskatoon in time. Similarly, this is a book, and I can't remember how it got on my radar, but I know that I did a opening sentence for the First Line Fridays thing that started on Litzy and I think is spread beyond Litzy, and I try to partake whenever I can. And I love this, it's where you just post the first line of a book for First Line Friday. Hashtag First Line Friday. And it was in that context that I hadn't read the book. I guess I had an e-book that I loved the first line, put it up, and have been so curious about the novel ever since. It's a Brazilian novel, Her Mother's Mother's Mother and Her Daughters by Maria José Silveira, translated by Eric M. B. Becker. Here is the first line, which I will read to you, and I'll put the gif of the thingy I designed and put up on Instagram and Litzy and so on. In the crimson twilight of dusk, cloaking the sea, when after 42 days the sailors of the Portuguese Armada glimpsed the first long flowing seaweeds stretching across the dark green ocean, a clear indication they were nearing land, Inaya's mother, standing on the packed earth of her village's ritual grounds, cast her eyes towards the first stars and knew immediately it was time. So this is a historical novel tracing the Portuguese colonization of Brazil, the histories of 20 women. I assume that might be the line of 20 descendants, like the family tree going on down, but it starts with the one character born in the year 1500. It is a doorstopper, so it's probably not a book that I will finish in Women in Translation Month. This actually is not one I'm waiting on because I have the ebook. The other one that I absolutely must get to, it's ridiculous that I am buddies with the translator, and this is her most well-known translation, and everybody and their dog on BookTube has been raving about it for years since it first came out in English translation, and I still haven't gotten to it. So this one, even if I don't get my physical copy in the mail in time, I will buy an ebook, beg, borrow, or steal, to read this during Women in Translation Month. Can you guess what book I'm talking about? That is Disoriental by Négar Djavadi, translated by my friend Tina Kover. It's supposed to be wonderful. The one that I didn't realize was the group read for the week-long readathon, but I chose, regardless of that, because I wanted to read it, because Ukraine is very much on my mind, as it is on most of all of our minds, I would imagine. And it sounds a little hentai. Fieldwork in Ukrainian Sets by Oksana Zabuzhko. Translated from the Ukrainian by Halyna Hryn. And it's supposed to be a little naughty. It's also supposed to be the most successful Ukrainian language novel post-independence. It was published in Ukraine in 1996. And Zabuzhko, at least at the time of this Amazon Crossing publication, was described as being one of the only Ukrainian language writers to make a full-time living from writing. I think it's kind of experimental, not particularly plotty. That may or may not work for me, but I will probably read the whole thing anyway, because it's only 160 pages. I am eager to read Ukrainian literature, especially by women. So those are the ones that I'm hoping to get to, and some of them I will probably start but not finish during the month of August. Here are 3 backups because of all the variables going on with waiting for books to come in the mail that are more recent. Although the first of those 3, I don't have yet either, but it is in the mail from Blackwell's, and that is the Man Booker International winning Indian novel, Tomb of Sand by Geetanjali Shree, translated from the Hindi by Daisy Rockwell. I will have a fabulous bite-sized book chat about this novel coming on my channel a week or 2 after this video goes live. Watch for that, because it's with an expert. I'm just delighted to get this expert, this Indian novelist, to come and chat with me about Tomb of Sand. It's also a chunky one. I don't need to say very much about it, but it would be a backup, and if not, if I don't get to it, if I don't start this one during Women in Translation Month, I certainly will be starting it soon. The other 2 I have, they were both purchases just before I left Tokyo that made it into my suitcase, so I have them in my hot little hands. This is a Spanish novel with a very intriguing title, all one word, Oldladyvoice, by Elisa Victoria, translated from the Spanish by Charlotte Whittle. The protagonist is, at least at the beginning of the novel, is a girl living with her grandmother. Her mother is in the hospital with a grave illness that is never named in the novel. She's spending the summer with her grandmother and is feeling quite unfettered and liberated because her grandmother is not very strict. And then there are visions of sex and violence that torment and titillate her. So it sounds like it could be interesting. And it's published by And Other Stories, that put out the most satisfying, the most gorgeous physical books in terms of like heavy paper. It just feels really good in your hand. I'm hoping that the book itself will be as good as its physical incarnation. And finally, Everybody and their dog is talking about this. I believe it was also on the Man Booker shortlist. Elena Knows by Claudia Pinero, translated from the Spanish by Francis Riddle. It's supposed to be wonderful. It's a little bit of a mystery, but not too much, or I would never want to read it. But it's a literary novel about the protagonist is a woman with some kind of illness that makes her basically disabled in some way, and I don't know the details. I will find out when I read it. But her daughter died suspiciously. I believe the police ruled it suicide, and she doesn't believe it, and so she goes to try and solve the mystery, or try to figure out what actually happened to her daughter. Despite her physical limitations, I don't know if she succeeds or not, but it's supposed to be unputdownable. I hope to pick it up, if not during Women in Translation Month, sometime soon thereafter. So that is my kind of all over the map, which is a good thing, all over the map, but also kind of work in progress type of TBR for this year's Women in Translation Month, and I hope you will take part as well. Thanks for watching.